mother, it's time for another episode of Birds with Friends. Just a trio of feathery brethren weathering any season to see the Eagles eating teams like Scrammy's top with cheese. It's Philadelphia, Bo, Sheila, and Zach kicking it cooler than 3 penguins till Zach runs off with his valet keys. He's a real nuanced goose. Pull up a branch, get loose. It's time for some juice on some
Birds with Friends.
The early bird gets the worm, but prefers getting turned like a turn on some
Birds with Friends.
Bo, Sheila, and Zach coming at you with stats and things flapping their wings on
Birds with Friends.
All I know is Zach said he has a game where he'll don't read both 7,000 words, and I said, I'm in. Let's go. Let's do it.
And so the purpose
that's what I needed was not to get at least one more reader. Stick around until the end of the episode to hear the trailer of The Athletic's next narrative series titled Luck. There are no, well, actually, I want to say there are no horses involved like that show that was canceled on HBO, but there are horses involved because it's about the Colts, Andrew Luck. And our Colts writer, Zach Kiefer, brings you Andrew Luck's story like you've never heard it before. He spoke with over 24 people, from Jim Irsay and Bill Polian to Frank Reich and Chuck Pagano to David Shaw and RG3 to peel back the curtain in a way that's never been done before on one of the most unique careers in NFL history. Get all 6 episodes of Luck on the Athletic Football Show feed on Monday, July 11th, wherever you listen to podcasts. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Burns with Friends on a Wednesday afternoon. Fun show today. Bo Wolf, Zach Berman, Sheil Kapadia, Marissa Dunn. Sheil is stewing that we have begun this episode with a mention of Bill Polian. I don't know what this could lead to. This is a dangerous thing for us to do, but we've got a fun episode. We're going to bring on a DFOP, Tony Ascenda, who has created and directed most of the episodes, I guess probably all the episodes, for the show Players on Paramount Plus, which we have all enjoyed thus far. We're going to talk about that in the second segment. We're going to bring him on. He's a DFOP. But before we get to all that, Sheil, how you doing?
Do you still do your, so we've been watching Players, big fans in the Kapadia household. And so when the credits roll, excuse me, when the credits roll at the end, I still do your thing of it's not my senda, it's not his senda, it's yes senda. So I think Jessica is pretty, she's heard that enough times over the past few days, but I don't know if you still
And he's
do
all
that.
over those credits too. I mean, it's
oh my God, how many credits can one person get? Unbelievable.
Fantastic. Anybody been to any good college campuses lately?
Of course, you'd start with this. So I was telling before the show that we were just in San Diego and we had about an hour and a half to kill before our red-eye flight back to New Jersey. And Michael said, hey, want to go take a drive to San Diego State's campus? And I was like, yeah, sure. That's a great idea. And we pulled on campus and Michael's like, I love a college campus. And I reminded him the whole story with Z-Berm and he was like, oh, I'm totally on Team Z-Berm for this. Love a nice college campus. Of course, San Diego State, absolutely beautiful. We did not have enough time to check out the student union. So we'll have to take a road trip back to that. But yes, shout out to San Diego State's campus. Beautiful. And Michael and Z-Berm are officially Team College Campus.
Now, did Michael ever have the official visits? Like, or because of
good question.
Yeah.
So he did, but they were D1 AA schools.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think he did UConn. I think he did Lehigh. Not those are the 2 that stand out. I know he did a few more, but
Lehigh,
yeah,
he wouldn't have liked the hills at Lehigh.
No, he absolutely would. That was the one thing he said about San Diego State, the backside of the campus. He's like, way too hilly for me. That's a lot of walking. But yeah, so he did do that. But when Maryland obviously offered him a chance to walk on there, he took that instantly. But yeah, he was a big fan of the campus feel for sure.
How about
I
you,
used
Zach?
to really, well, no, I was going to say, I used to really be into recruiting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I'd follow all the recruiting rankings, all the prospects. And if I was a prospect or if I were a prospect then, I'd go on all my official visits. These official visits sound like so much fun, right? I understand why someone would want to commit like their junior year or their sophomore year. But for me, I would milk the whole entire process. It sounds so fun to have. You get to go to 5 schools, they're all into you. It sounds fun, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
Shit, what are you laughing at?
Legend continues. I mean, this is all on brand. This all lines up with everything else you've said. I don't think I need to add anything else here. I'm sure you would set a record for official visits, and try to capitalize your time on every campus.
Yep.
I did try and have this conversation off the pod because I was pretty sure last time I threw you under the bus, Zach, with the student union thing. But I should have known that it would be brought on the pod. So, but all for the brand, all for the college campus brand. Love it.
Zach, how are you?
I'm doing great. Excited for this podcast.
We are. We're about 3 weeks away from training camp, just a little over. Is that correct? Do you have a countdown going down on your computer?
I think a little more than 3 weeks. Yeah. We're closer to 4 weeks than 3, but fewer than 4. So it's getting closer.
Okay. When is the Browns joint practice?
That isn't. Yeah, that's week 2 of the preseason. So that will be they play
ish.
Yes,
August,
that week.
Yeah.
They play the Browns on the 21st. I'm looking at my calendar here.
Hashtag BWF Zach's legs.
Leading up to that.
No, I've seen Zach's legs. We saw at the wedding.
Yeah, but he was wearing
all
pants.
your legs. Oh,
well,
true.
for part of it.
Yeah, for part of it.
Till the dessert table came out.
We'll take that
offline.
offline.
Belt.
Yeah, we'll take that offline.
All right. So,
now, have we gotten any updates? Are both beat writers, do we think, going to be able to make the Browns Eagles joint practice trip?
Where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Okay,
we'll be there.
All
I think
right.
we should. And if there are any Birds with Friends listeners in the greater Cleveland area, that's a time for a meetup, I would say.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I thought you were asking if you could sleep on their couch or something. Okay. Yeah.
No, if we can have a live pod in Cleveland, I think that would be of interest.
We'll just invite everybody over to Marissa's.
Yeah, perfect. I'll have my mom come. She'll make some food. It'll be great.
That's great. That's fantastic. Not a lot to talk about Eagles news wise. I do think the results are in from our draft, and it's a resounding victory for me. So congratulations to me on that front. Zach, is there anything else going on news wise? Should we even bother sending it over to the Stone Cold Newsman?
There's nothing going on news wise. The only piece. Well, actually, I take that back.
Oh, that's not true.
Since we last spoke, the Eagles did add safety Jaquisky Tart.
Yeah,
and that's a fairly notable signing. He's an experienced player. Sheil can give us the breakdown on him, but he's someone who's started in San Francisco, brings a veteran presence. I don't know if he was signed necessarily to be, your surefire starter, but whether this is the Corey Graham signing or whether this is the Jonathan Cyprien signing, time will tell. Either way, I think he's someone who can play a role in this defense.
Yeah, I can't say I paid a lot of attention to that one, but Jaquisky Tart, I mean, off injured, I would say durability has been a concern.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys have the numbers in front of you, but when he plays, certainly has that big hitter. It's his reputation, has been a starter for the 49ers, not good hands. The big interception he dropped last year, but I would agree with you. I think if you can get 3 competent starting caliber safeties, and if one of them is injured or if one of them doesn't play well and you still have 2, I think that's fine. I didn't see the numbers on it. It's obviously after the comp pick stuff. I can't imagine this, they're paying him that much money, so I think it's a fine other option to add to the safety position for them.
He played 14 games last year out of 17, and that was the most games he's played in a season in any of the past 5 years. So he is oft injured, not somebody you can count on, but certainly on paper, an upgrade on Kayvon Wallace. I think it's a better caliber of player than Andrew Adams, who they signed last year, right? And then Andrew Adams was beat out by Marcus Epps in training camp. I feel like Tart is here more to be the third safety in theory than to compete to take Marcus Epps' job, or maybe it's Anthony Harris's job. But I mean, this was the most glaring minor depth hole on the roster heading into the summer. They found the person who addresses that. It checks a box. Who's to say, you shouldn't have huge expectations for Jaquisky Tart.
And then one other piece of news, and I
also find myself, even though I know how it's spelled, I find myself when I type Jaquisky, ending it with a Y instead of an I. I don't know if you've had that issue.
Really?
I have not had that yet.
No. I've been writing about Jaquisky Tart for like a decade now. I feel.
Yeah, but I don't. I'm on first reference only. You only get the Jaquisky out once. I remember him from the Senior Bowl back in the day. Jaquisky.
I'm thinking of his name in my head. I mean, there's no Y entering the equation.
Yeah, I know that. That's why it's weird to me. I know. I can picture it perfectly. I know exactly how it's spelled, and for some reason, my fingers just are floating over to the Y instead of the I at the end.
That sounds like maybe a wolf's den for you.
So one other piece of news.
Don't you dare give me something to write about.
Yeah. So one other piece of news. I did not expect this to resonate as much as it has with the fan base, but it certainly drew a lot of reaction based on even the numbers we saw at the Athletic, and that is the Eagles changed their word mark since we last spoke. And so this is meant to be a little cleaner, a little more modern, can work on a few different color schemes, but I don't really have an opinion on it. I know a lot of our listeners might. And so
what a setup. Bo, do you have a strong opinion on it? I mean, Zach, this isn't a live pod. We don't have like a YouTube, so they can't just chime in with their takes here. Have you noticed the takes in one direction or the other? I mean, are there strong? I would also
strong negative
category of things Shield does not pay attention to in June.
Yeah, there have been mostly negative takes, although I don't know if it's a vocal minority or if it's representative of the fan base. Right. But when I say I didn't expect it to resonate, the news came out. We put it on social media. I had to go run an errand. I get in the car and they're talking. It's the top topic on radio that day. Right. So I don't know if it's just a matter of June.
You had to do a news update on it.
Yes. Yeah. We had to do a news update. I didn't expect that. So there has been interest in it.
I was listening to, well, that goes to the topic of like, is there anything Eagles related that is not worth talking about? I was listening to an interview with Angelo Cataldi on the Press Box podcast, and they asked him what percentage of your conversations over the years or your topics have been Eagles related. What do you think he said?
I listened to the podcast, so I don't want to give it away.
83%.
83. Jeez, Poe. I mean, you just got to go. No, it was 65.
Okay.
He said 65%. And then what did he say, Zach? That the Phillies and the Sixers, I think, take up a remaining 30%. And then everything else, I don't even think he mentioned the Flyers, but he said,
he said the
colleges.
One thing he said the one thing he won't talk about is soccer, which I found interesting because, you read a lot of these think pieces that like soccer's the future here. Right. And
yeah, I don't think Angelo's worried about the future.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough.
Okay. All right, Sheil, you had some. You've been deciding whether or not to work on the playbook for this year. It feels like you're in the dungeon, not sure if you're as fully committed as last year, but you have dipped your toe into thinking about the Eagles. Yeah. And you wanted to talk about some of the things that you've unearthed.
Well, yeah, regardless of what form it takes, I need to, I have different documents for every team where at least I need to do a little research analysis and formulate my takes, hopefully, before I go on vacation, which that's not happening because I'm about 8 teams through here and I start vacation tomorrow. But anyway, we have time until August.
Going anywhere interesting?
Interesting is subjective.
Okay, well,
we're going to Portland. We're going to Portland to see my sisters.
Okay, the other
week,
Portland,
which we normally do.
Nice.
Yeah, that's it.
The other Portland.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the other Portland. I'm in the Portland.
Okay. So I don't know if any of this is interesting at all, but I'll fire a couple things off.
Can
and
you play a game of Is This Interesting?
No, because I think the answer will be no to most of those. So
speak for yourself, Shield.
Okay. How many? Now we've talked about this offense, what it needs to do to make the leap. I feel like they're getting gassed up a little bit. I was listening to Mina Kimes and Greg Rosenthal. I think they both had the Eagles winning the division, but Rosenthal really gassing up the Eagles. How many new starters, like as in players who were not on the team last year, do the Eagles have on offense in 2022? Bo, I'll go to you because Zach
we're not on the team at all.
Yeah, or who haven't, or who,
One.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pretty big one, though.
Yeah, but it is just, well,
Yeah.
I feel like in my head, I was thinking
That's
there was
fair.
a lot more turnover, right? It's like, because
Yeah.
as I'm going through these teams, I mean, some of these teams, it's like 5 new starters, I don't know what the average is. I bet the average would probably be around 2 to 3 or, and they have 1 new starter on offense who was not on the team last year. And that's AJ Brown. Everybody else has been a starter. Some of these guys, obviously, like your boy Sayamalu was injured last year, but I would say everybody else, even aside from Sayamalu, was like a legit starter last year, right?
Yeah, and I would think that it's not as easy as this, but if you're just generally thinking of like who is on the good side of the age curve, who should be getting better every year, and who's on the wrong side, who should be getting worse every year, of the 10 returning starters, I mean, it's really just Kelsey and Lane Johnson who should be like on the decline phase of their career. Now, it's not as easy as that, but in terms of cohesion, I think there's a case to be made that it's a young group of cohesion, which is probably good.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right. On that same point, the Eagles had 12 offensive players log at least 400 snaps last year. How many are back with the team in 2022?
Offensive starters, you said?
Offensive, just offensive. Yeah.
I would guess.
Don't ask me why I picked 400, and Deniz, don't tell me I should have done this some other way, because my time is limited and that's what I chose to do.
I would guess 9 of
All
12.
of them.
Or
Wow. All right. So Zach says 9 and Bo says 12. All right. So this would qualify as an interesting nugget because you guys are on different sides of this. It is 11 of 12.
okay.
Is it Jordan Howard,
back.
the other one?
It is not. Can you name
Two
can
Is Herbig
you?
one? Is Herbig one?
Herbig.
Herbig.
Okay. I figured Herbig was
Nice.
one.
So,
Did Ertz reach that threshold?
No, he was the only one. He said Herbig was the only one.
Listen, none of this is fact checked. This was all first draft. Everything I say here could be wrong. Again, Deniz, go ahead. I believe
It's
you're
summer. It's
vacationing. If you
vacation
wanna fact
time. Yeah.
check some of this stuff, go ahead. I haven't.
Feel
gotten
free to
that
fast forward to
portion.
the ascend part.
Yeah, please do. Again, 11 of 12 players who logged 400 snaps are back on offense. So a lot of continuity. Same coach. Same play caller from halfway into the season. It's really the one big addition of AJ Brown, and then you're hoping for a little bit more health there. All right. Where do you think Jalen Hurts? Now, I feel like there's a little bit of, I don't know if with Jalen Hurts, it's a lot of like, all right, you can't get out of your head what you saw in that Bucs game last year. Of course, we should zoom out and look at the larger sample. We know that. Where do you think Jalen Hurts ranked in terms of EPA per play against the blitz? Because I do think this is something you're hearing. The teams are just going to blitz him like a Todd Bowles blueprint, get after him. He's not going to be able to handle it, and he's going to be Stanko Janko.
Yes, 16.
This is one of those things where if you had asked me at the end of the year, I would have known. And it's all of this stuff is just gone from my mind. I'm going to guess 9.
You're becoming me. This is what happens. You forget everything that happened.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I wrote something after the Super Bowl. I couldn't tell you probably 10 things that happened in the Super Bowl. What did you say about 8th?
I said
and
9.
Zach said 9th.
He said 16th.
It is 13th.
Okay.
So he was 13th against the blitz. That wasn't really his kryptonite. Really, if you look at the numbers paint a picture of a guy who struggled when teams just rushed 4 and said, we're dropping 7 into coverage, go through your progressions. We don't need to do anything special to pressure you. When he faced 4 or fewer, 27th in EPA per play against the blitz. So as we're trying to look ahead and say, hey, how are teams going to defend the Eagles now with this year of film on Jalen Hurts? I think that that's something to keep in mind, that is might be what they face more of. It's not, hey, make a quick decision. It's, even if our front 4 takes a little bit of time to get home, he's not going to be able to go through everything and make the plays he needs to. He might panic at some point. He might leave the pocket before he needs to. So I don't know. That was somewhat interesting. Where would you put that on the interesting scale? 1 to 100. Let's give it.
To
73.
Wow. Wait, is 100 like the most interesting thing?
Yeah, I think I find that to be
Zach gassing
interesting.
me up. All right.
Yeah, I mean, are we talking about on the scale
like
of like Eagles minutia or just low
for a
like,
June 29th podcast
Yeah,
that no
or
one
like
wants to be doing?
a president like decides
Speak
not
for
to have
yourself again.
magnometers at the Capitol? Is that like
Wait, sorry.
if that's
what did you say?
100?
I missed what he said.
I'm just trying to figure out the scale. If it's just Eagles adjusted on what's interesting, or if it's like what's interesting in the world.
Eagles adjusted. Yeah.
Okay, and then Eagles adjusted, I would give it for a June nugget. 39.
Under 50? That's outrageous. You could give me, if I'd give 100 nuggets, you would say most of them would be more interesting than that. Get the hell out, go to Helsinki.
But we already
We'll
knew
do the
that
rest of
Jalen Hurts
this.
was better against the blitz than against
Oh,
four-man
really?
rushes last
Because
year.
a minute ago, you're saying I don't remember what it was.
Well, yeah, I don't remember exactly where it was, but I knew that he was better at that than.
I'm thinking about just quitting this this exercise and just getting to not my sender, not his sender, to your sender.
Yeah.
But I'll continue with a couple more here. All right. Dallas Goddard, my boy. Where do you think he ranked in yards per route run among all tight ends who ran at least 200 routes? There were 41 such players, by the way.
4th.
I'd say 9.
First.
Okay.
First out of 41, George Kittle. Travis
I'm going to give that
Kelce.
a 69.
Please. That's like in the 90s based on your guys' response there. Outstanding nugget. Yeah, Dallas got 922 yards, playoff game included. First out of 41 tight ends in yards per route run.
I think you've written that recently. Yeah, that jumps out to me. Yes. No, Shield. Did you put something out on that?
I mean, I haven't written anything in like 2 months. I wrote one rate.
That's all right. I look forward to the next thing.
I wrote my one rate Dittinger story, and then it was jumping into playbook prep. So no, I definitely have not written that recently, depending on your definition of recently. All right. So that was a good one, Goddard. I don't have a lot more here.
That was a good one. I give it an 83.
Okay. All right. Here's my last one. There were 53 players last year who had at least 100 carries.
What a good number. Anytime we get a 53, I'm excited.
Where did Jalen Hurts rank in success rate? For those of you who don't know, success rate just means, was it an EPA positive play or not? So that could mean if it's 3rd and 2 and you get 3 yards, that's EPA positive. If it's 3rd and 2 and you get 53 yards, that's EPA positive. It's either a successful run or it's not a successful run. So again, 53 players, all positions included, had at least 100 carries last year. Where did Jalen Hurts rank in terms of success rate?
14th.
So the reason I'm pausing here is I actually had to write a story about Jalen Hurts for our a fantasy football story that's going to be coming out soon. And there was a nugget on success rate that was in there, but I think it was within a historical context among mobile quarterbacks as opposed to last year.
Okay.
And the number there was 8th. So I'm going to go 8 just for consistency purposes. But the stat that I have
I like that
was
Marissa's nodding along like 8th was a good.
That was my guess in my head was 8.
okay.
Oh,
okay.
why did we not? What a terrible job. How is Marissa not being?
No, because I could be
guesses?
totally off. So I'm glad that my
Listen,
my
you
thoughts
hearing
got in
these
there.
guys? They're way off on every one of these, and they cover the team.
But when Zach said that, I was like, oh my God, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So what's
Make
the
sure you
answer?
check out those articles as well.
Yeah.
There you go. Good sell, Bo. The answer is 2nd.
Wow.
Second best rusher in terms of success rate, ran for 823 yards. That's the playoffs included, but of course he missed the start there. Produced a successful outcome on 58.8% of his runs. Now that does include scrambles. He was behind only one player. Who do you think that one player was?
Lamar Jackson.
Incorrect, but good guess. I think he was top 10.
Josh Allen.
That's correct.
Okay, that's a good
Josh Allen Josh Allen's rushing numbers are pretty ridiculous. How much he sort of saved that offense with his legs last year, and really over the last couple of years. But Hurts ran for 57 first downs, tied for 8th among all players. That includes every running back in the NFL. He produced a first down on 38.8% of his runs, which again ranked 2nd behind only Josh Allen. So I sort of feel like with Hurts, we don't like to watch him and think, oh my gosh, we're watching Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson. There was the one run against the Saints that, that was sort of one of those highlight reel runs. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, on a week-to-week basis, it's an exercise of you look at the box score and are like, oh, those are pretty good rushing numbers. And yes, he was a factor, but it's not like, oh my God, this is a generational runner. But his numbers really were like, unbelievable last year when you look at what he did as a runner. And of course, that's going to have to continue to be a big part of their offense. Again, those are designed runs, option runs, scrambles, everything gets included in there.
Right. It makes sense. It makes sense that a quarterback would have a running quarterback would have a high success rate because you're only running when it makes sense to run for the most part. But yeah, I think you're right. Like he's not
necessarily.
He's not the most
runs, option runs with some of these guys.
But he's not. You're right. He's not the most like dynamic runner. He sort of takes what's there and does it in like a non-splashy way most of the time. But yeah, it's a huge part of the offense. Go ahead, Zach.
So to that point, to compare him to other mobile quarterbacks or other quarterbacks who have run since 2000, 28 quarterbacks have featured at least 100, or I should say 28 quarterbacks have had at least 100 carries in a season. Among that group, Hurts is number 8 in success rate and number 8 in total rushing EPA. So just something to
good one.
Store away there, and credit to our editor, to editor Aaron Reese, who helped with some of those stats for that fantasy football preview.
Shield, do you have where Miles Sanders ranked on success rate of those 53?
I do. Do you want to guess what it is? I was going to finish actually with a Miles Sanders question, but why don't we go with that one? And Marissa, you have to guess. Out of 53 players, where did Miles Sanders rank in success rate? Miles Sanders had 770 yards last season.
Marissa?
15th.
No, what are you going to make her go first? All right, 15th. All right.
Well, I don't want to prejudice her. I'm going to guess 47th.
I'll go 46th just to jump ahead in front of Bo.
I mean, unbelievable. This is a great exercise.
I'm doing game theory here and jumping in front of Bo here. Trying to be closer to the pin.
Well, that's true. But you would both lose handily to Marissa, which again, another example of why she should be included more. Her knowledge.
I agree with that.
That's O-line play stuff, the run game. I mean, we're not talking about you pretty throwing the ball out there. I mean, we need in the trenches. And this is a good example of how like Miles Sanders, like the perception of Miles Sanders, I think is very different from the reality. I'm not telling you he's a great back, but he ranked 21st. Out of 53 players,
but he was
above average.
The one thing I know is that he had the lowest success rate of the 3 Eagles running backs. He had the best yards per carry, but his success rate was worse than Boston Scott and Jordan Howard, which would sort of accurately
how many
tells
carries
the story
did they
of.
Get?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It might have been a smaller sample size, but that's why I guess so low, is because I knew that he was worse, which I think is the right story. He's the most explosive, but also the least reliable.
Okay, well then let me ask you this. I looked at, I think this is let's give another shout out to Aaron Reese, because I think this was a report that he created in True Media. So 53 players with 100 carries. In terms of percentage of runs that went for 0 or negative yards, where do you think Miles Sanders ranked? So number 1 on this list would be the player who never, the best at it, never gets stopped at the line of scrimmage or negative yards. 53 would be the player that the highest percentage of his runs get stopped at the line of scrimmage or for negative yards.
Adrian Killens, basically. I'm going to say 29th.
28th.
What a segment I just created out of thin air, during the break, just jotting down some notes. Again, now this could all
This
be
is
wrong,
why you're a
so,
podcast extraordinaire.
Yeah. So Deniz, I mean, if you want to correct all this and tell us what the hell is Shield talking about, half of the things he said was wrong. Again, none of this was fact checked, but he was 9th best. Just 13.2% of his runs went for 0 or negative yards. So the reputation of Miles Sanders is boom or bust.
That tells me
it's too much. Well, actually, yes. Well, let me finish. I mean, I would agree. Yes, they had a very good run blocking line. They had Jalen Hurts. There were not going to be a lot of opportunities, perhaps. But I mean, if in your head you were thinking this guy is just taking these negative plays time after time, that's incorrect. If you want to say he dances a little bit and he could have got 12 there and he only got 3 because he tried to hit a home run, I do think the film certainly would back that up. But it's such a subjective thing. Like you don't like I don't know that anyone's charting how many times did every running back not hit the hole and try to create a big play. And oh my gosh, Miles Sanders does that all the time. I can think of examples throughout. Yes, I think that's fair, but I think some of those numbers would suggest that probably statistically fans are probably a little bit too hard on him. Or you could also just make the case that this scheme with this offensive line with Jalen Hurts, anybody is going to be pretty good back there. And if you can create some explosive plays, then more power to you. So this is not hey, go pay Miles Sanders a second contract. I do not believe that. Go pay any running back with this scheme and quarterback a second contract. At the same time, if we're looking just at his numbers in a year that I don't think anyone would say was a great, even an above average year for Miles Sanders, maybe there's some room for him to be a better player here in 2022. And maybe we judge 2021 a little bit too harshly.
Well said. All right. Let's take a little break.
Wait, one quick thing though before we jump off. Just
was that wrong? That could have all been wrong.
No. This is this goes back to our last show, which was the NFC East draft,
yes.
which Bo said that he won, and
we should have had Yasenda pick a winner. I was thinking.
No, so I actually a listener suggested something interesting to me, and this would tie into I guess tangentially Yasenda's show. Even though it's not about Madden, but someone said we should put all the teams into Madden and virtually play them and see who wins. I think that's a really good idea, considering I have the better quarterback, I have the top pass rusher. So I think,
and
it's
considering
a good idea.
you have a PlayStation 5 in your office.
Wow, Marissa.
I mean, it's perfect. There you go. Zach has to play
have a question.
all the teams.
Yeah, Zach's got like 7 pass rushers in his 11-man defense. Of course, he wants it to be on Madden. Go ahead, Shield.
I have a question actually as it pertains to the NFC East quarterbacks. Let's do this exercise. What did you guys pick for the Eagles record with Jalen Hurts?
11.
I was 10-7.
I think, yeah.
11
What?
I think
11-6. Or
I thought I said that. I don't know.
yeah, no, I think I had 10-7, but I've since switched to 11-6. I think I went.
Yeah, I switched to actually during doing these skeleton chapters. My first draft, I've got Eagles 11-6, Cowboys 10-7.
So you guys are coming over to my side.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they. All right, so let's say 11 wins with Jalen Hurts. I mean, I think that's reasonable. Again, the over/under's 9.5. So we're all being homers here. But let's say 11 wins. Let's say Dak. Everything else is the same. You do a straight up Jalen Hurts for Dak Prescott. How many wins do you think they have?
I would still I think it's just hard to pick a team to go 13-4. So I would probably just say 12.
I would say 12 as well.
So one more win?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You trade Jalen Hurts for Daniel Jones. How many wins do you think they have?
I'll subtract 1.
I'm subtracting more than that. I think I go down to 7.
7?
Yeah.
Okay. See, I would disagree with that. I think that
I know that's
because he's the quarterback on your roster. So,
well, no, I mean, listen, I did not ploy to have him as the quarterback on my roster. And actually, statistically, if you look at it, I don't have my Giants chapter up here, but really, there's no example of a guy being as bad as he's been throughout his first 3 years, and then suddenly being like a good quarterback. At the same time, I think if you kind of watch him and you say, man, if you plugged him in with this offensive line, this coaching staff, these weapons, I don't think you'd be crazy to say they could have around the same wins that they would have with Jalen Hurts. Now, again, statistically, that would not be a good argument because Hurts has already performed at a level just as a passer in the passing game, if you include scrambles in terms of like EPA per play, that Jones has never gotten to. But you can, and usually you come up on the wrong side of things when you make this argument. But when you make hey, his supporting cast has been so terrible, but man, that Giants supporting cast has been so terrible that it is kind of an interesting exercise. I definitely would not go as far down as Bo goes. I would say, I mean, I think they could definitely be. I think they could be above 500, and
I don't think
9
so.
to 11 games with Daniel Jones as their quarterback. All the pieces in place here.
You don't get the built-in advantage in the running game. You don't get the force of personality.
You could get some of the scrambling. He can scramble. He is a good athlete, and I mean, just the tools to work with as a passer, I think, are superior to Hurts. Again, this is when you get into arguments that make you look stupid a year later, because those things don't always translate. But I don't think that. I think that's almost like I don't think that's what's the word I'm looking for?
Crazy?
Not hyperbole, not argumentative.
Yeah,
not why. I don't know.
I think it's probably the right argument, but I just think he stinks. So.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go on.
Well, I didn't fit the last one.
Carson
Wentz. Yeah. Carson Wentz. The current Carson Wentz with this supporting cast, coaching, everything else the same.
So Gardner Minshew's playing about 13 games.
Well, I mean, the Colts went what last year? They went 9-8 last year.
I think that's right.
I think I would go 8.
This supporting cast far superior to that one.
Yeah. So I'd probably go 10. I'd probably go 9 or 10, right?
I'd go 8.
Yeah.
All right. So you think they would win more games with Wentz than Daniel Jones? So you think I should have taken Wentz over Daniel Jones?
I don't, but I think they would win more games.
I would have.
You understood why I did it.
Yes. You made the right decision.
Right. But where do you think Wentz will rank in EPA? What kind of season are you expecting from Carson Wentz? Where will he rank in EPA per play among all starters or quarterbacks with, let's say, 200 dropbacks next season? What do you think? We haven't really talked about Wentz in Washington other than like LOL Wentz in Washington, but how do you actually think he's going to play?
LOL Wentz in Washington. That's how I think he's going to play.
He was 16th last year in EPA per play. I would argue this is one of those where the number is very deceiving. I feel like if you watched him every week, but he was 3 of the last 4 years. He's been in the top 18 in EPA per play. So that's taking the disastrous 2020 into account. That's not saying 2017 is not a part of that. So 3 of the last 4 years, he has been a top 20 quarterback statistically. Do you think it will be a top 20 starter in 2022?
I think if he qualifies, which is a pretty big caveat, I think it's hard for me to expect him to fall all the way down because of the rest of the league. But yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be like 19th or 20th. And I think his season is going to be LOL Wentz in Washington. I think it's going to be an abject disaster.
Yeah, I think he'll be in that middle, in that middle 10. I think that's fair to say.
I would say no, but this is, that's why I picked Daniel Jones ahead of him. Yeah. Statistically, the case would be that he should be in there. And he started 17 games last year. Is that right? He didn't miss a game for COVID. I thought he missed a game for COVID in there.
No, he did not.
17 games.
Yeah, he started the game, but they lost, and he was.
They changed the rule.
He didn't. No, he didn't practice all week, and so I think that's what happened.
Right. He's missed 4. He's only missed 4 games in the last 3 years.
I think some teams might wish that he missed more.
Jeez. Okay. All right.
Well, let's take a little break. I think. Just programming wise, we'll probably be off next week as we're in the middle of the doldrums. And then Zach and I will be back with Marissa a week after that before we get ready for the Ospreys, which promise to be a memorable one this year, I would say. So we'll take a little break. Back on the other side with Tony Ascenda talking players, which you all need to watch. If you want, you can pause right now, go watch a couple episodes, pick it back up, and listen to the fun conversation with Tony Ascenda.
I would recommend that. That's a rare good recommendation to the
also
listeners,
use.
I would say,
we should give the promo code now that Tony gave.
Yeah.
Right? Promo code players.
Paramount Plus. Yep. Go sign up. Paramount Plus. I think the first 2 episodes might still be free on YouTube, but do the Paramount Plus.
Okay.
Just
come on, give him a little player.
Paramount Plus players. Let's go. Gas up, Ascenda. Here we go.
Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. Burnout is real, and life can be overwhelming. Many people are burned out without even knowing it. Symptoms can include a lack of motivation, irritability, fatigue. We associate burnout with work, but that's not the only cause. Any of our roles in life can lead us to feeling burned out. BetterHelp Online Therapy wants to remind you to prioritize yourself. Talking with someone can help you figure out what's causing stress in your life. It could be family, it could be work, it could be friends, it could be health, whatever it may be. Prioritize your mental health and seek therapy. BetterHelp Online Therapy is a place to do that. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Our listeners get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/BWF. That's betterhelp.com/BWF. betterhelp.com/BWF. When the moment for intimacy arrives, you need to be ready. Roman ready. Whether you've been in a relationship for years or you're just getting started, having the confidence that comes from preparation means you're free to enjoy the moment when the moment comes. Even though you are far from ordinary, the truth is, ED is really common. In fact, 52% of guys aged 40 to 70 experience some form of erectile dysfunction. Go to getroman.com/BWF now to speak to a U.S. licensed healthcare professional about erectile dysfunction and get $15 off your first month of treatment. The benefits of ED treatment can help you reconnect with your partner and rediscover the joy of sex. Roman Ready is confidence personified. It is the self-assurance that comes from knowing you've prepared yourself for the moment when intimacy arrives. Roman's system is completely confidential and it's totally discreet. There are no big logos or labels on packages. With Roman, you get a free online evaluation and ongoing care for erectile dysfunction, all from the comfort and privacy of your home. Getting started is simple. Just go to getroman.com/BWF and complete an online visit. Take care of your ED without leaving your home. Complete an online visit today to connect with a U.S. licensed healthcare professional and take care of it. Go to getroman.com/BWF today, and if you're prescribed, you get $15 off your first month of ED treatment. Make sure you're ready to have confidence and control this summer. Roman Ready.
All right. As promised, we are back on Birds with Friends, and I think one of the rules of Birds with Friends is that as Casey walks into the room, Casey, you want to say hi? We're talking to Tony Ascenda. This is a big deal, Casey. Come say hi to Tony.
Hi, Casey.
Say hi. All right. I think one of the rules of Birds with Friends is that we always want to gas up friends of the pod, but I mean, if there is ever an actual opportunity to throw our relative weight behind something as good as this, we have to do it. So Tony has tell us about Players, which I have watched. We're up in Maine right now, and on the drive up, we stopped in, we drove 7 hours one night, stopped in a hotel in Massachusetts for the night. The kids went to bed. Rachel went to bed. I'm just sitting there in the dark in this hotel room. I fire up the first episode of Players, and I am just sitting there with this childish grin on my face all night long. It was fantastic. I have loved it. I would say that you can't be a minion if you're not watching players, but we're happy to have you, Tony.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for watching the show, which is on Paramount Plus. And Players it's basically the Last Dance or Drive to Survive, one of these premium docu-series, except we're following the fictional esports gaming team called Fugitive Gaming as they try to win, as a player named Cream Cheese tries to win his first LCS title. And it's a alternate dimension, and we take it a very realistic approach, I think, because we use the actual game and the actual teams in this very real league that sells out the Staples Center and Madison Square Garden for these events. And we get to play in our fictional world. And hopefully it's not just for fans of gamers, but fans of traditional sports who realize that, like, all of the mechanisms are kind of the same.
Well, you as someone who followed Classics for Shield, it's past the Classics for Shield test. I mean, I'm not looking at my phone during this. Well, you know, it takes you to a world. I like shows that take me to a world that I'm unfamiliar with. But I also like that it's not, you know, we had just finished Severance. The Kapadia mom and dad had just finished Severance. We're jumping into Ozark. But as I've mentioned before, it's 9 o'clock. You put someone's being creative, kids being nuts. You go down. Sometimes I don't want to be in the Severance world. We need to be in the right mindset to watch Severance. We love Severance, but this takes me to a nice place. We know we're going to have some laughs. We know it's going to be light. We know it's going to be fun. We know it's going to be funny. So listen, if this show stunk, we would still have you on, and we would still have to say good things about it because you are a BWF listener. But luckily, I mean, it's very rare that we get the BWF listener, and we actually are loving the content that they create. So yes, I absolutely do recommend it to our audience. We did this terribly. I mean, what we should have done is we should have given the shout out last week, said everyone watch the 5 episodes.
Right.
Come in, give us your questions, and we could just be talking about the show. Now we can't get too much into the show because we don't want to spoil it. So I would blame that on you, Bo, because you did set this up.
Well, also we recorded last week's episode like 3 weeks ago. So
I feel a little bit mixed about a Shield Kapadia endorsement, though, because some of the movies that you've hated are some of the greatest movies ever made. So,
and he also liked Jalen Rager. So,
and he could be Kapadia cursing. Yeah, we don't want you cursing the show, Shield.
Well, listen,
Severance is so good. That show.
No, I love
Severance. When you finish up Severance on Apple TV, sign up for Paramount Plus. Promo code Players. You get a free few weeks.
I like that.
You can binge the first few episodes. And like I said, you don't need to be, here's an analogy for you. You don't need to know esports to get into it as kind of designed. Like when I listen to Birds with Friends, I feel you guys don't dumb it down at all. We're having Zach pull
to our own
undrafted free agents from 2003, and you know where he went to college, but it just that makes me feel like I'm in good hands with people that know the world inside and out, so that when you guys are having a more digestible debate about something that I can invest in, I now, you guys have more credibility, so I'm able to enjoy that when I'm like, these guys are all mini Ray Didingers, and they
mini being the operative word.
That's why I love. Yeah, that's why I love this show so much.
So what's the threshold for spoilers here? Because I do have questions, but I'm not going to give away any plot lines. But are there details that I can bring up?
I think you'll be able to find that line.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can talk about first couple episodes. It's about cream cheese and organism trying to figure out how they can work together in the bot lane.
So and this is probably on brand for me asking this. Organism, for those who've watched it and for those who are going to watch it,
of course, this is your first question,
is from Philadelphia. Okay. One little detail: the father and the brother, the football uniform, was that St. Joe's Prep?
We
Okay.
we called it.
What an opening question! Wow,
It's
unbelievable.
It's Ursinus College colors. That's where my sister went to college. He's a D3 basketball player.
That's
and
right.
we just wanted the Star to be the underdog from Philly. And there's a handful of Philly connections in this too. We were very fortunate. We were able to talk to Daryl Morey, who used to run an LCS organization while he was the GM of the Rockets. And he tried to like moneyball esports, and he realized early on that that's impossible because they have all these patch updates, so their data set changes all the time and stuff. But he was really saw the future of this world, and there is a lot of nepotism between, or a lot of crossover between the NBA world and League of Legends world. So like that part of the series is not fictionalized at all.
Speaking of that, speaking of that, why the Sacramento Kings? Because there was a laugh out loud line in the first episode regarding the Kings. I'm curious why the Kings shade. What's the Kings the Kings angle there?
Well, it had to be a guy who we bought living in Los Angeles, so it needed to be a West Coast team. Okay. And then Lakers, too prominent. Clippers, too Donald Sterling. So it came down to either the Suns or the Kings. And then it was the Suns in the beginning of the room, because we started writing this years ago, and they needed to be sort of like a middling team. And then the Suns became the best team in the NBA. So the Kings started to catch some shade from us.
You talked about this, and like I have really no penetration in esports. Like I'm aware of it. But I don't fully understand what's going on. I don't understand like how many different games are being played, like the different leagues for different type of games. But the show does such a good job of like there is like it takes no time at all to like sort of realize what's going on. And I don't even know like what's real versus what you guys are making up in terms of like the mechanics of the games. But you guys did such a good job of that. What is your esports background? How did you come to it?
Well, I came in like very anthropologically, like there are kids that are selling out the Staples Center to watch other kids play. We went to these things, and it is bizarre because they're just on stage and they're not even moving. And the crowd is going nuts. And then I just heard, we went to Riot, and I heard the way they're talking about like the relationship between the ADC and the support, and like the way they were talking about, counter logic gaming is the same way me and my buddies at home talk about the Eagles. And then that's when you realize like this isn't necessarily a show about gaming. This is a traditional sports show in this crazy alternate dimension where these like gamers they're truly rock stars. When you're around them, they are rock stars in such a bizarre way. So we were just fascinated by it. And then we learned the mechanics, and it's all real because not only did we have like esports writers in the room at all times, but some of the actors on set are real pro gamers. Okay. And then we have a former coach next to me behind Video Village who's like, they wouldn't actually say that. And that's the sort of thing that like you and I would never be able to pinpoint like, hey, that's inaccurate. But another recommendation for you, Sheil, is Queen's Gambit. That's a show about chess, and they don't dumb down the chess at all. You feel the research, you feel the accuracy, but you're just staying involved because you know what this means emotionally for the characters. So I'm glad it's working for you guys.
I was thinking of how to describe it, so I don't know if you will take this as a compliment, an insult. I could be completely off base, but we just let it rip on Birds with Friends. I felt like it was Silicon Valley meets The Last Dance about esports. How do you feel about that description?
We may have said something very similar when we were pitching the show.
All right,
so,
good, very good. So go ahead.
And you've said enough nice things about Dave over the past year that
another great show.
You can let it rip on players. Okay. You could be honest. You've built enough goodwill.
Well, the Kapadia brothers-in-law actually are into this, the gaming stuff. I mean, my brother-in-law, when we lived in Kirkland, when I was covering the Seahawks, they drove up from Portland, and he went to, I think I was doing some research on this, Dota 2. That's a game, I believe, Dota 2. He went to Key Arena, former Sonics Arena, for like 3 days. I mean, he's waking up at our house, going every day, spending the day there. It's sold out. I believe it was sold out, the entire thing. I mean, there's like 24 million in prizes there. And then the brother-in-law on the wife's side had his own Twitch stream at one point before he settled down and got married. So yeah, there are people, and I was the same way. I was like, I don't really understand this, but I'm like, I do, what I'm doing is so stupid too. I mean, I'm watching like a sporting event and, and totally into it and writing about it. And someone is like paying me for this. All of this is stupid, unless you're like a nurse or a doctor or a teacher. Like we could probably name like there's probably like 20 professions where you're actually doing something. The rest of this is, gaming,
I wouldn't even go that
sports,
far.
Yeah,
and,
it is
stuff like that.
It is bizarre because like it will make you feel really old to have these kids talking about like, well, this new item in this new meta, they need to nerf this champion because he's going to come and this team comp doesn't make sense. And there's so much where you're like, oh my God, why would you learn all of this stuff? And then I'm done and I turn on Birds with Friends and you're talking about the DVOA of the, this certain blitz. And you're like, oh, it's the exact same thing. It's just our society for, 70 years has been like, because these guys are physical gods, we see why we're watching that. And this seems so arbitrary that it's like, you're just watching kids play video games. But when you really get into like the amount of dedication and sacrifice that goes into being one of the world's best players, it really is apples to apples. It's just, I don't know. It is just it's still sobering. I still need to pinch myself when I'm at one of these events.
Were there inspirations for the specific characters? Like, are they based on esport players? Are they based on professional players and coaches? And I asked specifically about Coach Braxton because he's quickly becoming one of my favorite characters on here. He's a good
great character.
We have it was a cool room. It was a mix of like people who knew traditional sports, people who knew esports, and people who knew nothing about either world. So it'd be fun to have like basketball is the easiest reference because it's a 5-on-5 game. It was kind of modeled after it. So you'd be like, this person, this is like the 2004 or 2013 Oklahoma City Thunder, and like cream cheese is Russell Westbrook, who hasn't quite gotten there. And and we would have these sports analogies that would help our esports writers who like knew both then give us comps in the esports world. We're like, and personality wise, he's like this ADC Dardoch, and you'd go back and forth. So it's like an amalgamation of people in both worlds. I think the most relevant connection I can make was we were in the writers' room during the Sixers collapse with where Ben Simmons passes up that dunk over Trae Young, and I just found myself, I was like so angry at this like 24-year-old Australian kid. Like he did it just to stick it in our faces. And then I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why am I so mad at this kid? Have some perspective. So writing this show was a little bit of like catharsis for starting to like be compassionate and empathize with like these kids that we get so worked up about, like watching from home.
One of the things that I always have trouble answering is like when someone asks me like, what do you do in the off season? Or like, what do you like, take me through like the beats of your job. But I'm going to ask you like the novice outsider question. What was the process like and how long did it take? And what were the steps from like, ideation of the show to, scripting, selling the show, shooting, all that stuff. Can you sort of take
Yeah,
us through that?
I want to know about the pitch process as well for the show.
Well, it goes, we were back when our first show was called American Vandal, which was on Netflix,
Also
which was
very
like
good.
another mockumentary series. And we were talking about like, how do we make this, our favorite documentary subgenre was sports. So we had been like circling the esports premium sports doc for a while. So we're building this out, making connections at Riot, and that everything takes a long time, sort of building it out, researching the world, and then I'll go off and direct some episodes of Dave. Dan is like writing this other feature film, and then we'll come back and then we will like pitch this show to Riot, and then Riot has to do a deal with Viacom with CBS, and that takes a year. So we'll go and we'll do something else. So we've been like really working on this show for like 4 years, and it's fun
Your
to
baby.
finally see it out there. So yeah, appreciate you having me on and letting me plug it.
Yeah, if we can get our audience to listen, that's at least 200-300
million
viewers. Million. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say really could put you over the top. Now, I did hear there was a line in there. Now, I can't remember which guy said it, but who was comparing something to option routes in football.
Yes.
Now, I thought, hey, maybe there's some birds with friends. I was going to give us, gas us up a little bit, give us a little credit. Any other birds with friends inspiration? Do we think maybe, in a future episode, maybe you need like an Indian podcaster, a bald guy in there, anything like that to kind of further this burgeoning relationship?
The mid laner was called Garbanzo until production, and it didn't pass clearance. So that was the attempted shout out. But
we've been waiting for this forever.
Okay, we have time.
Yeah,
this is going to be on for many seasons.
Then you said on the podcast that you're like, oh, we should try to get something on Abbott Elementary. And I'm like, we had already wrapped production. I'm like, man, I should have made another effort after Garbanzo didn't go. But that's a good name for a mid laner.
Garbanzo, that would have been so good. Oh man.
Yeah.
In the first episode, Pablo Torre gets the cameo there, or at least the voice gets the cameo. That could have been Shio as the national reporter.
I missed that, Pablo. He got the.
We have a Dan Patrick coming up.
Oh yeah, I saw that Dan Patrick. Yeah.
Okay, was that Pablo Torre though, or am I mistaken?
No, I don't think so.
No editing.
Wow.
We have Riot archive footage, but I don't think anything made that.
Wow.
It's a sound alike.
That
That's
was
tough.
in my notes there. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Tony, how would you split the turkeys of success of Dave between your directing, Taylor Meshach's acting, and Zach's article on Little Dicky?
I think you gotta go Taylor Meshach won. I made this mistake earlier when we were talking to Daryl, and I'm like, what's the best contract on the Sixers? And he gave a kind of political answer. And then he's like, what's the best contract on your show? And I'm like, that's interesting. And you'll see Taylor's in later episodes. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? You got me at such a friends and family discount. I guess she's the best. So I'm still making up for that. But
now she is outstanding.
And she also Taylor's so great in that show. And she also I showed her some Birds with Friends clips of you guys like talking about Dave, and she was excited about that. But then she walked in. I was picking her up from somewhere, and I was just like giggling, listening to Bo sing about sing as Ben DeNicki.
Oh, God.
And she's like, "What are you listening to? I cannot do this." And she made me turn you guys off. So,
that's understandable. I tell her I feel the same way many times. Yeah.
No, it's the best. You guys. It is amazing how the podcast is simultaneously like some of the dumbest, most unpretentious stuff, and then you guys are the bastion of like the most reasoned like journalistic integrity that I can find in the space, and that contradiction is why it is. I just recommend it to everybody who is an Eagles fan. And my poll is less. I don't think my endorsement goes too far, but you know, I've got you a few listeners.
I want to get into the Eagles fandom. I mean, that's a good launching off point. Sorry, Bo. Do you have?
No, I've got like.
I felt like you gave me I gave you the opening there.
Yeah, it's okay.
I felt like you maybe wait for beat where I thought I had to jump in.
Go ahead.
It's like organizing the franchise here.
Yeah, I don't think we have all the background. Where'd you grow up? I know you're a Philly sports fan, not just an Eagles fan. And was this a sickness from your youth, and then going out to LA even intensifies when you are taking on other fans? Give us the backstory of your Philadelphia and Eagles fandom.
Yeah, I became an Eagles fan when Rodney Peete got injured and Ty Detmer went in and almost. I love a good story.
1997, right?
Yeah, that's right. The 6-9 in 1 year, but it was Ty Detmer was the future to me. I got the jersey and I'm like, he's gonna prove everybody wrong. It did not work out that way, but I love that story. And then really haven't missed an Eagles game since. But like, I'm not there. There are guys I talk to who know everything about all of the teams, and I'm very sort of just I watch the Eagles on Sunday and casually check my fantasy team, but yeah, I'm a casual Eagles fan at this point. But being in LA, finding the group of people to watch it with every weekend, it becomes even more necessary when you're no longer in the city.
Go ahead, Zach.
I was going to ask about Dave crossovers there. Can you fill our listeners in on your background on Dave, because we have gassed that up, and I think I don't think Bo adequately explained. No disrespect to Bo.
Another shot every episode now, Bo.
Why you? Yeah. Why you were particularly bullish on one character on the show. So can you explain that as well?
On Dave? Oh, yes. Dave has been a buddy. I've been working on Dave's music videos for years. So then I met Taylor Mishak, who plays his girlfriend on the show, like 7 years ago. And now she's incredible on it, and we are together. So that's why it wasn't. That's why we brought up Allie, because obviously Gata. I've known Gata for 6 years too, but I'm just not in a romantic relationship with Gata. So that's why Bo didn't bring it up.
Gata's fantastic.
I think you directed my favorite episode that of Dave, which was when he went back to Cheltenham or Elkins Park. What was the Meet the Birds or the Birds episode?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. The parents are such good actors. It's always a pleasure to work with them, and even after season 1, because I'm close with Dave, I can be like, hey, if there's a parents episode in season 2, can I? We'll see how it shakes out, but I was able to kind of put a dibs on that one.
And so what is the background on you getting into this line of work? How did that dream begin? How did it get fulfilled?
I've been making movies since I was like 8 years old, and with my friends in the neighborhood, we always had a camera, and I don't know, it was like every kid, it was either like, I'm going to be the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles or I'm going to make movies. And then it was pretty clear in Pop Warner, which was the possibility. So I ended up going to film school, made some shorts, started working for like College Humor, and made these Lil Dicky music videos. And, they started doing well. Then that was enough to get me in rooms to pitch this crazy idea for a show called American Vandal. And while that's happening, the pilot of Dave is happening. So it's kind of like the past 5 or 6 years has been when I've sort of transitioned from, comedy shorts for the web into TV.
And what about the co-writing process? Like balancing out those personalities every day. This is something that is familiar to us to some degree. What is that relationship like with Dan, your partner?
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, each one sort of has a different. Sometimes he's bringing the idea, and I'm just like bringing the shape and like the tone and the architecture. And sometimes it's my idea, and he's punching up with comedy. There's times where it's a room where I'm running the room, and then we have 8 people, and there's other times where it's like Dave's show, and I'm just like throwing some ideas out there for him and the writers to maybe latch on to. So there's no one way. I imagine it's the same with you guys, where if you guys are going to write something together, sometimes somebody will be at the typewriter, and somebody else is throwing in, or how does that work with you guys?
Then we get Stephen Cohen to come in and clean it all up.
Zach, you have anything you want to vent about here? I mean, this seems like a good opening. No?
Nothing to vent. I enjoy working with both of you guys. So yeah, no venting.
Okay.
I hope it lasts forever.
No, we had, so in times when we've worked together, we've all kind of taken separate parts of the story, and then we have a good editor bring it all together.
Oh, that's
I thought the if we were left to do it by
that's really only we've really only done that once. Yeah, that one.
Bo and I team up on a lot of stories.
Yeah, and there's less.
Those
less
are more back and forth,
yeah.
though. I feel.
Yes.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say quite at the level of a show on Paramount Plus, but I do see the parallels. All right, I have to ask you.
But your big underworkings article that the 3 of you did about the organization.
Yep.
That goes. You are all writing stuff, and you have this editor come, and he's sort of.
It was a little bit disjointed. The truth is, it was
disaster.
Like very.
What
it
we
was
turned
tonally
in was a disaster.
Yeah, like we each took different sections, and that really didn't work out very well. It was not
like 3 separate articles,
yeah.
and then the editor brought it all together. Yeah.
Wow, he did a great job.
He did
a great
Shout
job.
out Stephen
I
Cohen.
never would have known.
Yeah.
Yeah, now teaching at the University of Oregon. I'm sure he'll listen to this and appreciate the shout out. I wanted to ask about.
Yeah, we need the proverbial Dan Cohen on our show. That sounds great.
That's right. Helper. We all need a little help. You've given a couple content recommendations, but I feel like if we're having you on, I mean, you have to give me one show, one movie. I mean, all right, Sheil has some terrible taste, some good taste, because he likes the stuff that I do. He doesn't have a very long attention span. It's got to get him in the first 20 minutes. Is there something out there right now? It could be TV, movie, one of each, where you're like, I actually feel pretty good about recommending this, and I will commit to actually watching it, unlike a lot of the classics for Shield that were recommended during that ridiculous exercise. What was it, 2 years ago? A year ago? I have no idea. Okay.
And I still, after that exercise, I still really have no sense of your case. It seems
teen angst.
A little
this
bit
show has teen angst for Shield.
This show has the hits on a lot of
Teen
things I like. Yeah, I mean, I don't have to be in like a certain mood to watch it, because it's light. It makes me laugh. It takes me into a world. I like a nice LA, the Hollywood Hills, wherever they're living. I like that scenery is fun to me. It's got some sports into it. So, and also what I always think about after that Hot Fuzz was recommended in my review, I think, was I've never seen this many white people in one. Where's everybody else? This show mixes it up as well. I'm seeing a lot of different people in there. So yeah, it probably checks off a lot of my boxes, I feel.
Well, that's great. That's good news. I will, real quick before I answer this question, it does make me laugh that I DM'd you a while back, Sheil, because you were talking about like why am I going to watch Dogtooth, the Yorgos Lanthimos movie, when I could just watch a 30 minutes of Dave. And then earlier that day, I swear to God, Dave was like, I want this to feel more like Dogtooth. Like season 2 needs to feel more like an art film. And it was funny that both of those happened on the same day. But let me give you it's an older show. It was on Comedy Central, and it's out there for you. But it's Nathan For You.
Love it. I've already been through that. Outstanding. Absolutely down
it's
my
so
alley.
Funny, right?
Fantastic. I mean, I feel like based on some of the stuff you did, you could, I feel like there might be more to be done in that genre, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, what I like about it is how he mixes media a little bit. Like some of it's real, some of it's obviously scripted and architected, and it kind of keeps you on your toes. And we're trying to we injected real interviews and non-actors who are gamers who feel a little uncomfortable in front of the camera, just to kind of blur the lines between what's real documentary and what's fictional mockumentary. But I don't think anybody sort of subverts our expectations about reality and documentary, and then gets as many hard laughs as Nathan does on.
I saw a photo of you in a Summit Ice jacket, and it's I saw DFOP Rich Bobby. I saw a photo of him recently in a Summit Ice jacket, and DFOP Lemur. I mean, that guy rocks his Summit Ice jacket anytime I see him. So I feel like, that show, if no one has watched it, is certainly in the Birds with Friends wheelhouse. It feels like.
Deny nothing. It's a classic.
I don't mean to deviate from the humorous questions, but I do have a question I'm very curious about, and that's kind of where the industry is going as far as streaming. And I bring this up because my kids they watch TV, but they've never watched a show that's on 3 o'clock on this channel, right? Everything is on a streaming platform or on YouTube. At what point do you say you became, I don't want to say you embraced it, but where an avenue like Paramount Plus was exciting for you, let's say?
I came late enough that the traditional model was never really an option for me. Coming from College Humor videos and, Lil Dicky music videos, nobody's fighting to give that guy a broadcast slot that demands mass ratings. But you can make a really low budget comedy for Netflix, especially back in 2016. It was a little bit of a different model where hey, this is super cheap. We can take a flyer. If it finds an audience through the algorithm, great. And if not, we'll just bury it and we'll be on to the next one. It's really low cost, high reward sort of model that can have a far more specific audience than network, which requires you have to build on your audience of your lead-in show. And it's very much about capturing a broad audience. Our now content can really cater to the people who sort of seek it out.
The coffee maker was on in our house this morning. The coffee smelled and tasted delicious. Well, it was Trade Coffee. Trade Coffee connects customers to the freshest and best tasting coffee they've ever made at home by partnering with the country's best craft roasters. These are independent businesses from big cities and small towns. Trade customers are truly impactful for these independent roasters, often being the largest source of new growth for them. Trade's first match guarantee is such that Trade is so confident they'll match you right the first time, and if they don't, they'll take your feedback and an actual coffee expert will work with you to send a brand new bag for free. This is expert tasted coffee. Trade's coffee team actually tastes thousands of coffees to keep 450 different kinds live and ready to ship every day. There's no one perfect coffee, but there is a perfect coffee for you. That's what Trade's human-powered algorithm can find. Trade Coffee sends you freshly roasted beans from 60 of the country's best craft roasters, small businesses who pay farmers fair prices to sustainably source the greatest beans from around the world. Whether your friends call you a coffee snob or you're just one of those people who you know it when coffee tastes really perfect, Trade's real coffee experts personally taste test over 450 roasts so they know exactly what to recommend for you. Trade has delivered over 5 million bags of fresh coffee with more than 750,000 positive reviews. Right now, Trade is offering new subscribers a total of $30 off your first order plus free shipping when you go to drinktrade.com/BWF. That's more than 40 cups of coffee for free. Get started by taking your quiz at drinktrade.com/BWF and let Trade find you a coffee you'll love. That's drinktrade.com/BWF for $30 off.
All right. This is totally random, but I wanted to give a little shout out. I think episode 5 there is about like the dichotomy between the streamers and the competitors, and I thought it was very it was a good like 1-to-1 comparison to what's going on in golf with like the people leaving the PGA Tour to the Live Tour, where it's like, do you care about the money and entertaining, or do you care about like competing? And I thought that was that jumped out to me. So. And then at the end of episode 5, no spoilers, but there's a thing is coming, and when it comes, it really delivers. It's fantastic. So,
well, I love that. I mean, I think it's happening with a lot of sports, though. Like even in basketball, you can really see that there is player empowerment, where it is no longer like the GM and the coach tells you where you're going to play and how much you're going to play. Like if you're a max contract player, the GM is your employee essentially, and now right. the economics have like kind of caught up to that. And there's in the world of gaming there is also player empowerment, because they're not withholden to this league. They can go out and they can find their audience on their own. They know they are entertainers that don't necessarily need the structure of an organized league to find these huge 7-figure salaries. It's interesting. It bodes. I think it bodes well for the future of sports, even though sometimes we get nostalgic for the old, like just I want this person to play for my team, and now he's holding out. Now he's demanding a trade, but I think it's good in the long run.
I think this podcast is always pro player empowerment. I would hope that comes across.
I would call you pro owner. I think most of our listeners would probably say you're a little more on the ownership side for most issues, but maybe there are a couple that I'm wrong about there.
Quick question: do you consider esport a sport?
I think so. People in the room would call like the premise of that question very boomer. Like they're not.
I feel like.
I usually get hit with that.
That could be a response to Zach, like at a regular press conference.
That could be a drop. That could be a drop.
Because gamers don't get upset. They're like, "Hey, I'm an athlete. I need you to compare me to LeBron James." But it's like the infantilizing where we're like, "Oh yeah, my niece plays video games. Maybe she could be a pro gamer." You're like, you don't understand how much time and dedication and talent and sacrifice that goes into being one of these top competitors. So whether or not you call it a sport or
just like PJ on the show,
they never call themselves like esports athletes or anything. They call themselves gamers, but I think they want and deserve like the respect as competitors at a super high level. But I don't think they care that much about that exact term.
Well said, and good answer. I like the boomer drop there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was like, that's something I asked. That's something obviously the writers ask in the room, and the esports guys are like, we don't really care. It's just a thing that you have like on ESPN. Esports, that's not a sport, and it's just like a conversation they're not even a part of.
Can we get you on the record before you leave with your prediction for the Birds season? How do you feel? What's your temperature?
I'm trying to like temper my expectations a lot, because it's so easy to be like, oh my God, there's all of these players, especially on defense, that we seem to have gotten at like suspiciously good value.
Right.
But when's the last time all of those players have panned out? Like I look at Peter King having us 4th in the NFC, and I'm like, if Bradbury is as good as he could be, and Kobe Dean is as good, but then what are the odds of them all playing well? And it seems like Gannon's scheme really requires talent. Obviously, it's not like, doesn't seem like he's like really out scheming people. So I don't know. I could see some early games where we still are not able to stop defenses with competent quarterbacks. The other team gets out to a lead, and we're just not able to throw the ball well enough to catch up. And I see us at what is it now? 9-8.
Yeah.
No, I'll go 10-7. I'll go 10-7.
And that was about as good analysis as you'll get on the
analysis.
show. So,
Best analysis of the Eagles.
We're going to take the rest of the summer off
on the
we're
show.
Good.
I mean, we're gassing them up, and that's a much more realistic. I think he said it well about what could go wrong. And I was looking at my notes here. You did give me a good content recommendation, I think, from another BWF listener. You said PJ McCabe, right?
Yes.
The beta test you threw in there. My wife and I watched that. We're highly entertained by that film.
Awesome.
So, yeah, that was a good one.
Great.
So listen, you already, Nathan, for you, the beta test, players,
also
Dave. I mean, I just need to follow you. Like, you need to just start a list or something, and I can just follow your recommendations.
Isaac Hagee is one of the best editors I've ever worked with, and he edits Atlanta, which is obviously one of the best shows on television.
Just finished that a couple of weeks ago.
BWF listener. So you got, I love the beta test. It's so good. It's so weird. It's great.
Yeah. Good job,
I think
Isaac.
the next show, your next show should be called Podcasters, right? And like behind the scenes of the life of podcasters.
Yeah. High stakes to the people involved.
That's right. I like the Dream On documentary that was on 30 for 30 on the women's 96 team. That was good recently. You know, jumping timelines just like players. It's all cohesive.
Did Tony do that?
I haven't seen that. I'll check that out.
Yeah, it was very good.
Oh, that's just a random content recommendation.
Random sports recommendation. Okay. Also, like a credit of someone I know in the end. So there you go. That's a little Eve Wolf shout out. All right. All right. Tony, you've been extremely generous with your time. Thank you so much. Thanks for gassing us up. Thank you for giving us players to enjoy. And to all the listeners, this is your homework. If you're going to want to listen to Birds with Friends, you gotta do your job and support players on Paramount Plus. Thank you, Tony.
Guys so much for having me.
All right. Thanks, Tony.
All right. Thanks again to Tony Ascenda for joining us. And a reminder that we'll be probably off next week unless something crazy happens. They re-sign Jaquisky Tart. Maybe they pull a Fletcher Cox and cut him and then re-sign him in a couple days. We'll have to cover that. Otherwise, back in a couple weeks. And now, here's the trailer of The Athletics' next narrative series titled Luck. We peel back the curtain in a way that's never been done before on one of the most unique careers in NFL history. Get all 6 episodes of Luck on the Athletic Football Show feed on Monday, July 11th, wherever you listen to podcasts. And for Marissa, Tony, Zach, Sheil, me, and Elijah, thanks for listening. And as always, we love you.
At the center of one of the greatest what-ifs in NFL history is one of the greatest quarterback prospects of all time. What if the Colts had protected Andrew Luck?
It's amazing that the Colts could move on from Peyton Manning, and nobody really blinked.
The reason why Andrew turned around the Colts and turned around Stanford was that beast inside of him that would look at the opposing team and saying, I'm going to kill you today.
My encounters with him were unlike other encounters I would have with quarterbacks. He could have been a thoracic surgeon. He could have been anything.
I don't think there's ever been a smaller gap between between someone's floor and their ceiling.
If it's 1 to 10, he's a 10 in every category. There's Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, all wrapped up in one.
High end, he's a Hall of Famer. Low end, he's a multi-year Pro Bowler. Like, I can't see there's any way this guy doesn't succeed.
I just remember him saying, Jacoby, like, this is going to sound weird, but can you hit me on the sideline? Because I need to feel the game right now. I don't think I'm supposed to hit you.
With Andrew, it was very secretive. Seeing all the treatment he would go through, see all the hits he would endure. It was like, man, I know you have to be injured.
He gets sandwiched between two linebackers at that moment. He has a ruptured kidney. The sort of injury you sustain in a car crash, basically.
I never knew what the hell was bothering me until all this news came out, and it was like, oh, wait, he was suffering from this? It was all news to us.
If the people that succeeded us had put a team around him, as we did with Peyton, the results probably would have been the same.
Andrew Luck has become a cautionary tale for any team with an up-and-coming quarterback who doesn't have protection.
I remember both of us having a moment where we both were teary-eyed going, man, this beautiful, beautiful player is not going to play anymore.
I'm Zach Kiefer from The Athletic, and I'm the host of a new podcast series called Luck. It's the Andrew Luck story as you've never heard it. The series looks to answer this question. How did the greatest quarterback prospect since John Elway, the very player the Colts moved on from Peyton Manning for, end up walking away from the game before he was 30 years old? All 6 episodes will be released on July 11th. Look for Luck on the Athletic Football Show podcast feed wherever you get your podcast, and listen to Luck ad-free on the Athletic app.